Hi, I know it's your weekend, but I've got a couple of things here to show you from the newest issue of Science News. First off, here's this thing about fossil fish, the ray-finned fishes, which it says includes things like salmon and garfish. That's nice. Now, these are the fish that swim in what's called the littoral zone. They've now decided, and the littoral zone is the middle of the water. The bottom swimming fish are in the benthic zone. Okay, so the littoral zone fish, these ray-fin fishes, they're finding out that there's evidence that they came on the scene much later than they thought, and they always thought that things like rays and skates, as the bottom ones, were the first kind of fish. They are the cartilaginous fish. They have, instead of bones, they have cartilage for their skeletons, which is why you don't find shark skeletons. Even sharks kind of like to cruise along the bottom more, and so they're found in the lower layers. But those fish that always stay up, hung in the middle layer of water, it's not a surprise that they're hung up in their dead bodies in a upper layer, a more upper layer of sediments in the flood sediments. So that's a new thing there. They're talking about the great extinction at the Permian. They don't ever mention the Permian, but that's what they're really talking about. Between the Devonian and the Carboniferous, when all these different kinds of species aren't found, they're found in one layer and then they're not found in the layer above. It could be explained by where they were at the time of the flood and not necessarily who got extinct and who did not, and things like that. Okay, but there are so many other things that happened this week. Look at this. Neanderthals tar making reconstructed. They're so shocked that Neanderthals were smart enough to make tar. Look at what it says here. It says that maybe this method didn't need advanced cognitive or technical skills. In other words, maybe Neanderthals, since they're so dumb, they could figure it out. When Neanderthals had bigger brains than us, maybe they were just gentle people who managed to learn how to live through the Ice Age. And when the Ice Age ended and all the other tribes of humans moved up from the Middle East areas and lower Europe to where they were living, they took over the neighborhood. Still, 4% of all modern Europeans do carry Neanderthal DNA. So before they actually were extincted, they intermarried with the other breeds of humans, and we still have their DNA today. For example, red hair. Okay, and here's another interesting thing about a big article where they just were discussing things about the Heracitherium. The Heracitherium was actually discovered by the same guy who made up the word dinosaur, Sir Richard Owen, back around Darwin's day. Originally, Owen did name it Heracitherium, but you'll see it in a lot of books as the Eohippus, which means dawn horse. Now, Sir Owen was actually the first curator of the Royal Museum in London and a very strong Christian who opposed Darwin's theory his entire life. He never thought that the little Bambi-looking fossil there was the precursor of the horse. He actually named it after the rock hyraxes that are described in the Bible, Heracitherium. Little tidbit on that. Well, let's try. Let's see this next thing here. Oh, look. Bats crash into windows. And there was a big feature article this week in Science News about bats, but I just thought I'd take the occasion to mention to you, because of the way the fossils are, evolutionists are forced to assume, they have to assume, because there's two different families of bats, they have to assume that these little flying mammals actually evolved the ability to do sonar location on two separate occasions. The immense impossibility that chance processes could have evolved sonar location in a flying mammal even once is astronomical. But that lightning would strike in two places, well, same place twice, that it would happen twice by accident, that really demands more faith than I have as a creationist. The last thing I wanted to look at was an article called Dark Matter Still Remains Elusive. Well, there you go. The hunt for dark matter. They actually, an unknown kind of matter sprinkled throughout the cosmos. They actually believe that 97% of the universe is stuff we can't see. In other words, imaginary stuff, dark matter and dark energy, for instance. And they're talking about the weakly interacting massive particles, or WIMPs. And they talked about how they haven't been spotted since 2016. But they've been talking about WIMP particles for a couple decades now. So that's not a new thing they've been trying to find. They've been trying to look at it for a long time. Signs of dark matter? Nada. And another from the Physical Review Letters research team added to the smorgasbord of negative results, they're saying. So in their search to justify the Big Bang Theory, you see, there's not enough gravity of stars in our galaxy to keep the galaxy holding together for as long as it's supposed to have. So they're looking for dark matter that has gravity, something invisible that's using gravity to hold the galaxy together. And then when they found out, they assumed that there's 10 times more gravity in our galaxy, in all the galaxies, than we can actually account for by stars and planets. Now they assumed that, and then they found out the galaxies were flying apart from each other. Well, if they're so gravity-ridden, they shouldn't be flying apart. They should be slowing down and getting ready to come back together again in what they used to call the Big Crunch. But back in the 2000s, the Hubble constant was recalculated, and we found out that for some reason, the galaxies are actually accelerating. Every day they're going faster and faster and faster away from each other. They're not slowing down by gravity with all this dark matter. So they invented something called dark energy. And the chair of physics at Yale University says, dark energy is just code for we don't have a clue. And I appreciate her honesty on that. But so they invented that idea to compensate for another if and or but or dog ate my homework story about their ideas about the Big Bang and how the universe got here. Anything but actually go with the science and history book. It's a little worn out. It says Holy Bible. They'd rather do that, anything, than actually believe the truth. And the Bible says in the last days, people will having a form of godliness, but deny the power thereof, ever learning and never coming to the knowledge of the truth. I really can't blame unsaved people for doing that, or even saved people who get deceived, because Satan is a very good trickster. He deceives people all the time. So don't be too hard on people for not believing the Bible way or the science guided by the Bible, the biblical worldview of science, but do not lose your grip on it yourself. And remember, the truth is the most powerful and important thing in science and religion of all kinds, but in Christianity especially, because Jesus said he was the way and the truth and the life. Have a good weekend, Dr. Jackson.